The slumbering giant. The vastness of space held many secrets, but none quite as carefully guarded as the truth about the small blue planet in the obscure Orion Arm. For over 2,000 years, the Xelarian Empire had ruled half the Milky Way with an iron grip. Their crystalline ships carved pathways through the stars, and their advanced technology bent 100 species to their will. They were the undisputed masters of all they surveyed, or so they believed. High Admiral Vexus stood on the command deck of the Celestial Hammer, the pride of the Imperial fleet. His scaled body gleamed under the ambient lighting as he studied the holographic display before him. His 4 eyes narrowed at the anomalous readings coming from a system long designated as uninhabitable. "Explain this," he demanded, addressing the science officer cowering nearby. "High Admiral," the small, insectoid Mithran began, multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly. "Our long-range sensors detected unusual energy fluctuations from System 47,293, locally known as Sol. The third planet is showing signs of technological activity despite being listed in our archives as a primitive death world." Vexus's crest flared with irritation. "That's impossible. The Ascension records clearly state that the species of that world destroyed themselves in nuclear fire 5 centuries ago." "Yes, sir, but these readings suggest otherwise. They indicate power signatures consistent with at least a Class I civilization." The Admiral's tail twitched as he considered the implications. A previously unknown technological species operating right at the edge of Imperial space was unacceptable. The Emperor would need to be informed immediately. "Set course for Sol," he ordered, "and send word to the Imperial Palace." Emperor Zekthal reclined on his crystalline throne, surrounded by the splendor of the Imperial Palace on Xelara Prime. His elongated, serpentine body was adorned with ceremonial armor that reflected the light from a dozen stars visible through the transparent ceiling dome. Around him, courtiers and officials from across the Empire went about their duties, maintaining the complex machinery of galactic domination. The Grand Vizier approached, prostrating himself before speaking. "Your Radiance, urgent news from High Admiral Vexus. The fleet has discovered signs of advanced technology on a world believed to be primitive. They are investigating now." The Emperor's vertical pupils contracted. "Which world?" "System 47,293, Your Radiance. The humans' homeworld." A ripple of disquiet passed through the Emperor's massive frame. The humans were supposed to be extinct, their civilization reduced to radioactive ruins centuries ago. The Ascension archives had been quite clear on this point. "Show me the report," he commanded. A holographic display materialized before him, showing sensor readings from the Celestial Hammer. The data was unmistakable. Energy signatures, artificial structures, and atmospheric modifications that could only be the work of an advanced technological species. "How is this possible?" the Emperor mused aloud. "Our archives indicate they destroyed themselves in their primitive conflicts." "Perhaps," the Grand Vizier suggested cautiously, "the archives are incomplete." Emperor Zekthol's scales darkened with displeasure. "Nothing in the Imperial archives is incomplete. Send a diplomatic envoy with the fleet. If these humans have somehow survived, they will bend the knee to the Empire like all others before them." Commander Sarah Chen stared at the massive alien vessel that had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. After centuries of isolation, humanity had rebuilt and advanced, spreading throughout their home system, but deliberately keeping a low profile in the greater galaxy. They had observed the Xelarian Empire's expansion from afar, gathering intelligence and preparing for the inevitable encounter. That day had finally come. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Rodriguez glanced up from his console. "The alien vessel appears to be a Xelarian Dreadnought-class warship, Commander. They're hailing us on standard frequencies." Chen nodded. Humanity's extensive intelligence network had provided detailed information about Xelarian communication protocols. "Put them through." The view screen activated, revealing the intimidating visage of High Admiral Vexus. His reptilian features expressed surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected to communicate with humans who understood his technology. "I am High Admiral Vexus of the glorious Silurian Empire," he announced, his translator converting his sibilant speech into English. "Your world has been rediscovered by the Empire. Prepare to receive our diplomatic envoy to discuss the terms of your integration into our dominion." Commander Chen smiled politely. "High Admiral, I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful communication but must inform you that Earth and its colonies are sovereign territories. We have no interest in integration into your empire." Vexus's crest flared with indignation. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. The Emperor has decreed that all technological species must submit to imperial authority or face extinction. Your civilization was believed destroyed. Your continued existence is an oversight that will be corrected one way or another." Chen's expression remained impassive, but her eyes hardened. "I understand perfectly, Admiral. However, I suggest you review your historical records more carefully. Earth wasn't destroyed. We simply chose to disappear from galactic affairs while we evolved." "Evolved?" Vexus scoffed. "Your species was barely capable of primitive fission weapons when you allegedly destroyed yourselves. What could you possibly have evolved into that would concern the Empire?" "Perhaps it would be simpler to show you," Chen replied. She nodded to someone off-screen. In that instant, undetected by Xilarian sensors, 50 smaller Earth vessels decloaked around the celestial hammer, having been there all along. Before the Xilarian systems could even register their presence, the Earth ships projected a containment field that completely immobilized the massive dreadnought. Vexus's expression shifted from arrogance to shock as alarms blared throughout his ship. "What is the meaning of this? Release my vessel immediately." "Admiral," Chen said calmly, "what you're experiencing is a localized space-time manipulation field, just one of many technologies we've developed during our disappearance. Your weapons, shields, and engines are temporarily suspended. This is not an act of aggression, merely a demonstration." "Impossible," Vexus hissed. "Such technology violates the fundamental laws of physics." Chen smiled. "Only the laws as you understand them. We've had 5 centuries to explore avenues of science your empire never considered." With another nod, the Earth ships released their hold on the dreadnought. Vexus's vessel lurched as its systems came back online. "Consider this a diplomatic exchange," Chen continued. "Return to your emperor with a message. Earth wishes to remain independent. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not submit to imperial rule. Should the Xilarian Empire choose the path of aggression, you will discover that humans are no longer the primitive species you remember." Vexus's scales darkened with rage. "This insolence will not stand. The Empire does not tolerate defiance. The Emperor will hear of this demonstration, but it will only hasten your subjugation." The transmission cut off abruptly. Commander Chen turned to her staff, her expression grave. "And so it begins. Alert all Earth and colonial defenses. We've been preparing for this moment for centuries. It's time to implement the Polaris Protocol." Emperor Zechthol's throne room had been cleared of all but his most trusted advisors. The Grand Vizier trembled as the recorded encounter with the humans played out before them. "Impossible," the Emperor whispered as he watched his prized dreadnought rendered helpless by human technology. "No species has ever developed space-time manipulation on that scale. The humans appear to have made remarkable advances in isolation. Your Radiance," the Grand Vizier observed cautiously. "Perhaps a diplomatic solution might be." "Silence," the Emperor roared, his massive tail slamming against the crystalline floor. "No species defies the Empire, especially not a race of primitives who should have exterminated themselves centuries ago. Mobilize the Grand Fleet. We will crush this insolence before it can spread." The military advisor stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Your Radiance, with all due respect, if their technology can neutralize our dreadnought so easily, Perhaps we should approach this situation with more caution. Emperor Zekthal rose to his full height, towering over his advisors. You suggest we show weakness, that we allow a single world to defy imperial decree. No, the humans have revealed their hand too soon. They have shown us their capabilities, and now we can develop countermeasures. His eyes narrowed to slits. Besides, they may have impressive technology, but they are confined to a single star system. The Empire spans half the galaxy. We will overwhelm them with numbers, and then we will take their technology for ourselves. The Emperor turned to his military advisor. Assemble the Grand Fleet. I want 1,000 ships surrounding that system within a week. We will offer them one final chance to submit, and when they refuse, as these arrogant creatures surely will, we will reduce their world to the ashes it should have become centuries ago. As his advisors hurried to carry out his commands, Emperor Zekthal returned to his throne. In his long reign, many species had initially resisted imperial authority, but all had eventually bent the knee or been erased from existence. These humans would be no different. But deep in his consciousness, a flicker of unease remained. The casual way the human commander had neutralized one of his most powerful warships suggested capabilities far beyond what should have been possible. For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt something he had almost forgotten: doubt. As the Xelarian dreadnought retreated from Earth space, the highest levels of human leadership gathered in the subterranean complex beneath Geneva. The unified Earth government had maintained this facility for centuries, directing humanity's quiet renaissance from the shadows. Director General Marcus Okoro surveyed the assembled leaders, representatives from Earth and its colonies on Mars, Europa, Titan, and beyond. They'll be back, he stated simply, and not with a single ship. Commander Chen nodded. Admiral Vexus will report to his Emperor, who will almost certainly order a full-scale invasion. Based on our intelligence, we can expect the Grand Fleet within a week. Then we stay with the Polaris Protocol. Okoro confirmed. General Williams, are our defenses prepared? The weathered general nodded gravely. The orbital platforms are at full capacity. The gravity well generators are operational around all major settlements. The Phantom Fleet is ready for deployment. And Project Prometheus? Okoro asked quietly. A silence fell over the room. Finally, Dr. Eleanor Chung, head of Applied Quantum Physics, spoke up. The dimensional fold generators are ready, Director General. But I must again register my concern about deploying such technology in combat. The consequences of tearing the fabric of space-time on such a scale are not fully understood. Okoro's expression remained impassive. Noted, Doctor. But after centuries of preparation, we cannot falter now. The Xelarian Empire has subjugated dozens of species across half the galaxy. If we submit, humanity will become just another vassal race, our technology confiscated, our achievements claimed by the Emperor. He looked around the table. 500 years ago, when we detected the first signs of the Xelarian expansion, our ancestors made a choice. Rather than announce ourselves to the galaxy, we withdrew. We focused our efforts inward, advancing our technology and preparing for this inevitable confrontation. And now, Commander Chen added, we stand as perhaps the only force in the galaxy capable of challenging their dominion. Not just challenging, Okoro corrected. Ending it. The Xelarians rule through fear and technological superiority. When the species they've subjugated see that the Empire can be defeated, the entire structure will collapse. He stood, hands planted firmly on the table. The Xelarians believe they are coming to subjugate a single upstart world. They do not realize they are about to confront the full might of a civilization that has spent 5 centuries preparing specifically for them. The meeting continued deep into the night as humanity's leaders finalized their preparations. Across Earth and its colonies, civilians were moved to secure shelters, and defense systems were brought to full readiness. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had become during its long hibernation. The slumbering giant was finally awake, and it was far more terrifying than the Xilarian Empire could possibly imagine. The Reckoning. The void between Mars and Jupiter bloomed with light as the Xilarian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace. 1,000 warships, representing the greatest concentration of imperial military might in a century, arranged themselves in battle formation. At their center, the imperial flagship Eternal Dominion dwarfed even the massive dreadnoughts surrounding it. Grand Marshal Thaxus, the Empire's most decorated military commander, stood on the command deck, his scaled hide adorned with the marks of 100 victories. "Status report," he demanded. "All ships accounted for, Grand Marshal," his executive officer reported. "No sign of enemy vessels or defensive installations. The human system appears undefended." Thaxus' crest rose in suspicion. "Impossible. Scan again, at all frequencies." The sensor officers worked frantically at their stations. "Confirmed, sir. We detect multiple settlements on the third and fourth planets, as well as on several moons, but no orbital defenses, no fleet." The Grand Marshal's vertical pupils narrowed to slits. After their display against Admiral Vexus, they must know we're coming. "This makes no sense." He turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to all human settlements." The view screen activated, and after a moment, Director General Okoro appeared. He looked calm, almost relaxed in the face of the overwhelming force arrayed against his world. "This is Grand Marshal Thaxus of the Xilarian Empire," the commander announced. "Your defiance against imperial authority has been noted. By decree of Emperor Zekthal, you are offered one final chance to surrender. Submit to imperial rule, relinquish your advanced technology, and your people will be spared." Okoro smiled slightly. "Grand Marshal, we appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid we must decline. Earth and its colonies remain sovereign territories." Thaxus' crest flared. "Then you have chosen extinction. Your display against a single dreadnought was impressive, but you now face the combined might of the Grand Fleet. 1,000 warships stand ready to reduce your world to ash." "Yes, we can see them," Okoro replied, his voice still eerily calm. "Quite an impressive assemblage. However, I should point out that you've made a critical error in your deployment." Thaxus scoffed. "And what might that be?" "You've positioned your fleet precisely where we wanted you to." Before Thaxus could respond, alarms blared across the command deck. "Grand Marshal," the sensor officer cried. "Massive energy signatures activating throughout the asteroid belt." Hundreds of previously undetected installations embedded in asteroids suddenly powered up, creating a web of energy that surrounded the Grand Fleet. Before any evasive actions could be taken, the entire Xilarian armada found itself trapped within a massive containment field. "What is this?" Thaxus demanded, watching helplessly as his ship's engines strained against the invisible barrier. "This," Okoro explained calmly, "is a large-scale implementation of the same technology we demonstrated for Admiral Vexus. Your fleet is currently suspended in a space-time distortion field. Your weapons, engines, and communications are neutralized." On the screen, Okoro's expression hardened. "Now, Grand Marshal, allow us to show you what 5 centuries of preparation looks like." From Earth, Mars, and several moons, launch platforms opened. Hundreds of vessels, smaller than the Xilarian warships, but sleek and unlike any design Thaxus had ever seen, rose into space and began to surround the immobilized fleet. "These are just a fraction of our defensive capabilities," Okoro continued. "We could destroy your entire fleet right now if we wished. But unlike the Empire, we don't seek domination through fear and destruction." Thaxus' training gave way to rage. "If you believe these parlor tricks will save you—" "They're not tricks, Grand Marshal," Okoro interrupted. "They're the results of scientific paths your empire never explored. While you were conquering the galaxy through brute force, humanity took a different approach." The view screen split to show Dr. Chang standing in what appeared to be a massive control center. Your empire's technology is based primarily on manipulating conventional energy and matter, she explained. Impressive, but limited. Centuries ago, humanity began exploring the boundaries between dimensions, the folding of space-time, and the harnessing of dark energy. Impossible, Thaxis breathed. Such technologies violate the fundamental laws of physics. Only as you understand them, Dr. Chang corrected. Your empire became complacent in its dominance. You stopped truly innovating centuries ago, merely refining the same technologies that brought you initial success. Okoro returned to full screen. Now here are our terms, Grand Marshal. The Exilarian Empire will immediately recognize the independence of Earth and all human colonies. Furthermore, you will grant independence to any species that requests it within your territories. Thaxis's scales darkened with fury. You dare to dictate terms to the Empire. Emperor Zekthul will never agree to this madness. Then perhaps it's time for new leadership in the Empire, Okoro suggested mildly, to demonstrate the seriousness of our position. At some unseen signal, one of the human vessels approached the edge of the containment field. A beam of coruscating energy lanced out, striking one of the Exilarian dreadnoughts. Instead of exploding, the massive warship simply disappeared, leaving no trace behind. That vessel and its crew have not been destroyed, Dr. Chang explained. They've been shifted slightly out of phase with our dimension. They exist in a pocket universe, unharmed but completely removed from our reality. We can return them at any time, or leave them in dimensional limbo indefinitely. The implications hit Thaxis like a physical blow. If the humans could selectively remove ships from existence without destroying them, no force in the galaxy could stand against them. The choice is yours, Grand Marshal, Okoro said. Return to your emperor with our terms, or we will be forced to demonstrate our capabilities more comprehensively. Thaxis's military mind raced through the possibilities, seeking any weakness, any strategy that might counter this unexpected threat. He found none. I will convey your terms to the Emperor, he finally managed, his voice tight with restrained fury. Excellent, Okoro nodded. As a show of good faith, we will release your fleet from the containment field and allow you to withdraw. The dreadnought will remain in dimensional storage as a reminder of our capabilities until an agreement is reached. The view screen went dark, and moments later, the energy field surrounding the fleet dissipated. Thaxis stared at the empty space where one of his most powerful warships had stood moments before. Your orders, Grand Marshal, his executive officer asked quietly. Thaxis' crest flattened against his skull in defeat. Set course for Xilera Prime. We must inform the Emperor of this development. As the Grand Fleet turned and retreated into hyperspace, Thaxis couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed the beginning of the end of the Xilarian Empire as he knew it. Emperor Zekthul's rage was legendary, but the destruction he wreaked upon the throne room as Thaxis delivered his report exceeded anything the Grand Marshal had witnessed in his long career. Impossible, the Emperor roared, shattering a priceless crystalline sculpture with his tail. No species could develop such technology without us detecting it. The evidence is irrefutable, Your Radiance, Thaxis replied, keeping his head bowed. The humans possess technological capabilities far beyond our own. They could have destroyed the entire Grand Fleet but chose restraint instead. Restraint. The Emperor's scales darkened to an almost black hue. You call demanding the dismantling of the Empire restraint. The Grand Vizier, who had remained silent throughout the outburst, finally spoke. Your Radiance, perhaps we should consider a diplomatic solution. If the humans truly wished to destroy us, they could have done so already. Emperor Zekthul turned his rage toward the advisor. You suggest we capitulate to the demands of a single species, that we throw away 3,000 years of imperial dominance. I suggest, the Grand Vizier continued carefully, that we adapt to a changing galaxy. Perhaps the era of absolute imperial rule was already approaching its natural end. Many of our subject worlds have grown restless in recent centuries. Treasonous thoughts, the Emperor hissed. Realistic assessment. The Grand Vizier countered with unexpected firmness. The humans have demonstrated technology that renders our military advantage obsolete. If we refuse their terms, what is to stop them from removing your radiance from this dimension, as they did with the Dreadnought? The Emperor's rage gave way to something the Grand Marshal had never seen before. Fear. For all his power, Zekthul suddenly realized he was vulnerable in a way no emperor had been since the founding of the Empire. What do we know of these humans? The Emperor asked, his voice quieter now. What drives them? What do they truly want? Grand Marshal Thaxis frowned. Based on our limited interactions, they seem driven primarily by a desire for independence, both for themselves and others. They specifically mentioned freedom for any species that requests it. Idealists, the Emperor scoffed, but without his earlier venom. Such notions lead only to chaos. Perhaps, the Grand Vizier suggested, but their idealism is backed by power we cannot match. The question now is not whether we can defeat them, but how we can preserve the Empire in some form moving forward. For the first time in his 300-year reign, Emperor Zekthul looked genuinely uncertain. Prepare a diplomatic envoy, he finally ordered. We will negotiate with these humans. 1 month later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the newly constructed diplomatic nexus orbiting Earth. The massive space station, built through human dimensional folding technology in a matter of days, served as neutral ground for the most significant diplomatic conference in galactic history. Emperor Zekthul, having left his throne world for the first time in a century, sat across from Director General Okoro. Around them were representatives from dozens of species, many seeing each other as equals for the first time. The Galactic Concordat is ready for your signature, Emperor, Okoro said, indicating the document displayed before them. The Emperor's scales shifted colors repeatedly as he struggled with the reality of his situation. This document effectively ends the Solarian Empire, as it has existed for 3 millennia. It transforms the Empire, Okoro corrected gently, from a force of conquest and subjugation to a cooperative alliance of willing participants. Your experience in administration and governance will be invaluable in this new arrangement. And if I refuse? Okoro's expression remained compassionate but firm. Then humanity will be forced to ensure you can no longer threaten galactic stability. We would prefer not to exercise that option. The Emperor's tail twitched in agitation. Your species emerged from nowhere with technology that shouldn't exist, and in a single month, you've rewritten the political structure of half the galaxy. I cannot help but wonder what your true intentions are. Our intention, Okoro replied, is balance. For too long, the galaxy has lived under the dominion of a single power, evolution. Biological, technological, social, requires diversity and competition to thrive. Dr. Chung, seated beside Okoro, added, we hid ourselves away not out of fear, but because we recognized that humanity needed time to mature before entering the galactic stage. We watched the Empire expand, and we prepared not just technologically, but philosophically. And now you appoint yourselves the new masters, the Emperor hissed. No, Okoro shook his head firmly. We have deliberately limited our role in the new Concordat. We will share some of our technological advancements, particularly those related to sustainable energy, medicine, and environmental restoration. But our dimensional technology remains our own, a guarantor of the peace. The Emperor studied the human carefully. And what prevents you from becoming what you claim to despise? What stops humanity from using this power to dominate as we did? Nothing but our own principles, Okoro admitted honestly. But consider this. We could have conquered the Empire a century ago, when our technology first reached its current level. Instead, we waited, hoping the Empire might evolve on its own toward a more cooperative model. He leaned forward. We don't want subjects or servants, Emperor. We want partners. Equals. The galaxy faces challenges that no single species can address alone. The expansion of the cosmic void, the omega radiation from the galactic core, the potential threat of extragalactic invaders. Together, we can face these challenges. Divided, we will all eventually perish. For a long moment, Emperor Zekthal was silent, his ancient eyes studying the humans and the assembled representatives. Finally, with a gesture that would be recorded in histories across 1,000 worlds, he pressed his scaled hand to the document. "So falls the Xelarian Empire," he said quietly. "And so rises—" "What?" "The Galactic Concordat," Okoro replied. "The first truly cooperative interstellar governance in our galaxy's history." As the assembled representatives added their own signatures to the document, a new era began. Throughout the former empire, news of the agreement spread, and celebrations erupted on worlds that had known only imperial rule for generations. 5 years later, the newly established Concordat Council held its annual assembly on Xelera Prime, a symbolic location that acknowledged the past while embracing the future. Representatives from over 300 worlds, including many that had been admitted since the Concordat's formation, gathered to address galactic matters. Former Emperor Zekthal, now serving as the Xelarian representative to the Council, approached Director General Okoro during a recess. "I must admit," the Xelarian said, his once imperious tone now thoughtful, "when you forced this arrangement upon us, I believed it would lead to chaos and collapse. Instead, trade has flourished, technological advancement has accelerated, and even my own people seem content." Okoro smiled. "Freedom and cooperation often yield results that force cannot achieve." "Perhaps," Zekthal acknowledged, "though I remain curious about one thing. Your dimensional technology. How did humanity develop such advances in isolation? Our scientists are still struggling to comprehend the principles, even with the knowledge you've shared." Okoro's expression grew serious. "Necessity and perspective, Emperor. When we detected your empire's expansion centuries ago, we realized we could not match your numbers or resources through conventional means. We needed to explore paths others had ignored." He paused, considering how much to reveal. "There was also another factor. 500 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself, just as your records indicated. In rebuilding, we were forced to reconsider everything: our values, our goals, our understanding of physics itself. Sometimes, only by facing extinction does a species discover its true potential." Zekthal's scales shifted to a contemplative blue. "And the future? What does humanity plan now that galactic stability is achieved?" Okoro gestured toward the viewport, where the spiral arms of the galaxy stretched out before them. "The Milky Way is vast, and we've explored less than a quarter of it. Beyond that lie other galaxies, other possibilities. Humanity has always been driven to explore, to understand, to connect. Now we can do so alongside others who share that curiosity." As they stood together, the former Galactic Emperor and the human leader who had peacefully engineered his empire's transformation, both contemplated the future spreading out before them. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed, not through conquest or destruction, but through the quiet determination of a species that had chosen to evolve in isolation before emerging to reshape the stars themselves. The slumbering giant had awakened, and in doing so, had awakened the entire galaxy to new possibilities. The end.